Hi, Donna.
Hello.
Welcome to the show. It's great to have you here.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so many things that we can talk to. But let's just start with the beginning of learning about, I want to say through yourself, learning about strength, physical strength, and how that has impacted not only the work that you do, but who you are.
Well, I don't know where I'd be without it, to be quite honest. Really lucky to grow up in a family that emphasized both academics and athletics. But the athletic part of it was really pretty spectacular. We skied, we skated, we did gymnastics, we ran. My father would literally throw us, he would be he would be the equivalent to a horse in gymnastics, and we would kind of handspring from his knees, and he'd pop us up with his hands. And so I think learning to use your body as well as your mind, and to have, as we talked about, to have the identity of an athlete is really pretty special. And it wasn't until you really just mentioned that to me now that I realize it's still who I am. It shapes my every choice.
Yeah,
So hard to think of a life any other way, and also fortunate that it compels me to just keep at it no matter what,
yeah.
and no matter what that what is, whether it's to get to a healthier place, or to do something challenging, or to embrace fear.
Was there a particular sport that you focused on at a young age, or you just had a lot of exposure to?
A lot of exposure, which is great because I was really only a gymnast. I mean, I played recreational stuff. The mix was cool because I could drop into anything without it being a big deal. And I didn't realize until later in life, when I was teaching, one of my first group fitness classes was in the basement of an MIT married housing unit. And it was wild to me that I met women from all over the world that had never even played a volleyball game. One woman that I was training went back to her country in, I think, Estonia, and she said it was just incredible that she had the confidence to say, "Yeah, I'll join in the game," even though she had no idea how to play it. So something I think I've taken for granted or gotten so used to is a way is sort of an easy access. But gymnastics was everything to me from third grade until my senior year in college. Was my first taste of kind of being knocked down. I shattered my ankle doing a handstand on the high bar, and pivoting out of it, you would land in this nice soft mat, but my mat had a slit down the middle. And so I landed 1 foot, ankle, completely shattered my ankle. And that was my first chance at looking at a situation and saying, I can work with this. And I just became much better at bars. I taped up that ankle, kept my feet off the ground, kept going, and bars at the time was my weakest event, and it became a really good event for me. So that was a while back, but
Such a great
still,
example, though, of turning something that we don't like, so to speak, or that we didn't want to happen, into it then becoming a strength.
right,
Yeah,
right. And that's the lesson, is no matter what sets you back or knocks you down, you have to look at what's the next thing, maybe the next best thing. Maybe it's not even close. For me, it was in the same gym, and I said, wow, I can just be a supporter of my, fellow teammates, athletes, which I did. But I guess there was always, and there still is, maybe it was from even that one point where I knew, and I know that I have to do something else along the same lines to continue to feel maybe that way, or to tap into that part of myself.
yeah. I love that you're talking about being a gymnast, because we were chatting before, and what I didn't say, because I was telling you that I was a tennis player and I was talking about being an individual sport. And in my head, I typically think, because tennis is so challenging physically and mentally, especially because you're by yourself and there's no coaching. And I also think that gymnastics is the hardest sport. And I did a little bit of gymnastics. But I think it's such a hard sport. I mean, there's so much risk that you're taking.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I mean, I have so much respect for the power output that you tennis players, the agility, that one hit can make or break your game, or serve. But gymnastics is really the risk. The better you are, the more you have to, be higher in the air, have your landing be more solid. And, I think I could have gone really far in the sport. Well, A, without that injury. B, if I think mentally I didn't have that ability to handle fear as well as you really need to be at the top.
Do you think that just being exposed to so much risk through gymnastics that really helped you in your life?
Oh, for sure. Well, the other part of it is I had a coach who was a mentor, who was someone that I wanted to perform for. I can look back, and I have a mentor right now. His name is Bob Wiersma, and very similar qualities of someone who just doesn't give up on you for a second and is always challenging you, but in a very secure environment. With my current business advisor, Bob, it's all about provoking potential. And possibly, since that was how I began to interface with the world, was with gymnastics, which is all about always increasing your potential. It's probably why I need it so much right now, or I respect how much that influences your work, and then your work influencing other people.
Yeah. So let's get into a little bit of your work. So you had this injury, which became your strength, and then tell us more about your story and the evolution of it.
So moving forward to, I was supposed to have a scholarship at UConn, and because of the injury, I went a different route. I went to SUNY Stony Brook, and the overall goal was to be involved in sports medicine. And I started off in their physical therapy school, which it was really, and still is, very well known for. And I think the void of not having gymnastics, I was a different person then. And the challenges of school, I remember just feeling, really off. And I didn't even give it a chance. I think I was in that pathway for about a year. And then I thought, this isn't for me. And I moved into education. And the beauty of it now is I get to do all of those things together. And I started running pretty heavily. That got me back on track to being able to move through space, and connect with my body, which for me is so important. Even if I'm going to have an important conversation with someone, it so helps me to get up and get moving. Yeah. Not even for the endorphins. I mean, we all love that, but there's something about, actually moving through space that I probably can tie back into what I did, in the earliest years that helps me to feel whole.
Yeah, yeah. So how much do you run?
Well, we're not going to talk all about my injuries today, but I had a proximal hamstring avulsion from a water skiing accident, which I was running a lot of distance. I ran the Boston Marathon. I ran one marathon to qualify. And now it's a real mixed bag, but it's pretty cool because I can get a lot out of my body from the way I've learned to train myself and train others because of all of this. So I can run 10 miles. I just have to ride the line, which is kind of amazing because when I had this injury, the hamstring is pretty unforgiving. It's, and any runner, any athlete knows as soon as you take that first step and you feel that pull, you have no speed. And so I'm pretty excited and grateful to all of the surgeons that helped me get to this place, and physiatrists and massage therapists and lots of good people.
Yeah. So, Donna, I'm doing this crazy, well, it's not crazy, adventure. In October, I'm climbing a mountain that is Stratton Mountain in Vermont. Mm-hmm. And it's part of a curated event. It's called 29029. And so you're climbing the equivalent of Mount Everest.
Oh, wow.
So we climb the Stratton Mountain 17 times. You take the gondola down, so you don't go down. You only go up, and you have 36 hours to complete it. So
Continuous?
Give me some, yeah, pretty much. Give me some advice.
Okay,
I want to move a little bit more into, because I know that you work with athletes. Mm-hmm. I know it's a general question, give me some advice, but just kind of throwing it out there in conversation of
Sure. So I studied with the Gray Institute in Michigan, and not only are we in alignment with body, mind, and spirit, but also in the rule of threes, and for simplicity's sake, my learning from them would say, always work with the foot, the hips, and the thoracic spine. And you're like, well, what does that mean? Well, most people maybe have a handle on a calf stretch, but you want to get mobilization around your ankle joint, because that's where what we call the chain reaction begins and all motion starts to improve. So getting a really good calf stretch, but lifting your spine, extending and flexing your spine, side lateral bending your spine while you're in position, and rotating, which I can show you. But those are the key areas to stimulate so that you have more motion available. And I think as athletes, I think I knew that when I started, especially with gymnastics, because it is so three-dimensional, and tennis, I would say the same thing. You are moving forward, backwards, side to side, and rotating, you know, in all your motions. That if you focus on those three areas and really get some good mobility there. The other thing which I learned through marathon training was you had to prepare for if the third thing went wrong, you were really going to be miserable. So let's say Marathon 1, believe it or not, I didn't take in any sugar. Someone on the start line said, don't do anything you weren't doing during training. And at the time, there's really no one was giving advice on it. And I just drank water. And I remember, being dehydrated. Then I started getting I was hallucinating a little bit around mile 20. But it was always the third thing that put you over the edge. And the third thing, believe it or not, they had moved the finish line on my very first marathon, which I wanted to qualify for Boston. So just your regular, climbing a mountain, if you get blisters, you're hungry, and you are cold, it's going to be that third thing that puts you over the edge. So I'd say, plan for three key comfort areas to get motion through those three parts of your body. And always realize that come that day, I think there's always this extra resource that you can draw from. So I don't know that you have to replicate the event or the distance, especially since you've been so super athletic, how to bump up against challenge.
Yeah. Well, I'm actually interested in finding that extra resource, which is one of the reasons that attracted me to doing something like this, is because I want to explore, I know I can play sports and things like that. I haven't actually ran a marathon I haven't done more than a 5K yet. But I'm curious because there's a certain quality of adrenaline when it comes to performance and competition that I know from my experience of competing of that you can turn it on, you can access something in those moments that you sometimes can't access in your normal day to day. So I'm really looking to find that growth edge of I have to use this extra resource. So we'll see what happens.
Right. In my Triogo training system, it became a realization to me that to start off in a simple way was really important to get people, let's say you're coming in from a trip, you've been flying, you just came in from Australia, and you don't even realize how off you are, or you're coming off the event you just described. I've created this sort of beginning sequence that starts with grounding. So you could do this in a room by yourself, you could do this ready, to get on the mountain, but planting your feet, feeling all four corners of your feet, centering. So taking some breaths to bring an awareness to your center where you're going to be breathing, moving. All of our organs are there, right? So sort of getting a little bit beyond just the physical athletic nature of it and getting into these natural principles, which is one of the cornerstones of Triogo, is getting you back to your nature, which is grounding, centering, lifting, reaching, expanding, and returning. I might have forgotten one because I said them kind of quickly, but to me, that speaks to everything we do. If you're going to raise a child, if you're going to do an endurance event, but it can also be very physical. You're going to plant your feet, you're going to center your body, you're going to bring your breath in, you're going to expand by doing, with the swimmers that I work with, I've been talking more about the ribs and the lungs, and it's like the things we take for granted. I'd say whenever you're going to do something big, sort of go back to the basics, but also in awe of what those basics are doing for you. So when you're moving and just simply breathing. We've gotten so complicated, I think, with yogic breathing, and there's ujjayi, and there's so many different ways, but you were born breathing. So if you're going to prepare for something important, breathe deeply. Breathe
Yeah.
deeply. Find the rhythm in your breath while you're moving. Ground down, and also realize what an amazing opportunity it is to be able to do something that you want to do instead of do something you have to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I practice a little bit of that right now as I'm starting to prepare, although I haven't started training yet. But I think, oh, how lucky I am to be able to move my body rather than being like, oh, this is hard. And, but I try to, I appreciate the gratitude of even like, oh, I get these 3 minutes to really
Sure.
push,
Sure.
and I think it's a great mind frame to be in. So I want to ask you, because you talked about, mobility and stretching. When did yoga come into your life?
So I was the jack of all trades. I was teaching step, I was teaching spin, certified in all these. I made up my own workout, high, low impact, absolutely everything. And I said, I've got to land, because I was prepping for a zillion classes a week, always flipping the switch. And so it came down to yoga or Pilates for me. I knew that I needed to do one thing, but that didn't work very long. As soon as I got certified in Pilates, which was like a 1,200-hour program, fantastic teachers I had, Nora Gomez-Diers and Kathy Van Patten, and I started messing around with it. I was like, wow.
So it was
feel the
Pilates,
core.
not yoga.
So it was Pilates, but I started doing a lot of yoga because I felt like Pilates had too much flexion and not enough rotation and not enough standing. In general, you could build it in, but I was trained to be a classical Pilates teacher, and so you had to follow the program, follow the script basically. And I learned a lot about myself as a teacher. Is that was impossible to me, because again, as a gymnast and as someone who had experienced pretty significant injuries, I couldn't do anything any typical way. So I needed to move out of center a lot of times. I needed to make stuff up just to feel safe even. So I started taking yoga classes because I felt as though there was a lot more standing, and more moving through space. Pilates, even with the equipment, can be maybe more grounding than the whole trio that I like to put together. So yoga became really, really popular at the time I opened my studio, and I'm really fortunate that people embraced my eclectic combo, because even if they came to my yoga class, I added Pilates, or I added some of these freestyle movements that I do with Triogo. So I'm a huge fan of yoga, and I think the important thing is to make sure no matter what you're doing, it's not static. So even in a warrior pose, beyond the breath, you can add a little bit more rotation perhaps. Not always, but I think if you want to get the most out of your body, you need to move through space.
Yeah, well, you have such an interesting lens that you're looking at it through, because of your background and your experience and your deep work that you've done throughout I would say, almost your whole life, right? And even through
Yes.
injury, it forces you to see things differently, right?
Yeah, it seems, I hate to say sort of meant to be, but I've had this incredible time these past couple days talking to so many entrepreneurs and so many people that are, have their own podcasts. And I've never really told my story so many times and sort of looked at it in that way. But, you really can't fight the flow. And if you're lucky, I've been incredibly lucky that no matter what's been thrown at me, there has been an option to keep moving. There has been an option to turn it into something. So I think I would take that mentality, even if something even harder happened to me, you've got to look for what that next thing is. And that's the scary part, is we want to retreat to what's familiar. And I think that's part of my movement philosophy in general. I think I'm really fortunate that I could never sort of stay with one thing for a variety of reasons. But the more I say it, the more I really believe that it's just so important for us to, A, keep it simple with your breathing, your movement, your nutrition, and your sleep. B, also, I wrote a paper recently at a short article about growing the guru in you. And I think right now we tend to keep looking for experts and keep looking for more answers. And what I'm looking at and trying to talk about more is taking what you already have and taking a better look at it and keeping that foundation, continuing to learn, but not necessarily to find new answers, maybe to find better fits to what, you really like. Because I think, the longer we live, the better we get at being ourselves, which is very cool, but it can be limiting. And now that we have so much available to us through technology and through just being able to experience a workout at home, which I'm super happy to provide, the type of Trioga workouts that I'm telling you about. But I'm still a big fan of just play, just play a little bit, and that's how you find out what might be a better warm-up for you. I think when I look at people, I love when I'm in a gym and I'm away, and there's usually very few people there. But I find that people move in this really small space to be polite. But even in that small space, you can reach your arms way up. You can reach your arms way out. You can amp up your breath, but I think we tend to play it small and safe when it comes to warm-ups and cool-downs. And those can really make a difference in how you begin whatever you're going to do, whether it's public speaking or whether it's athletic, and also end whatever you're doing so that you're always in this nice steady state going back to the next thing, whatever that thing is. I don't think that gets talked about too much. It's more about in the details of tell me how to get my heart rate to 85% and not hurt my hamstring.
Yeah. I mean, I think, some of it is like, the fear of injury, right? And maybe it's also some of your experience, and I'm just kind of guessing here, is that when you've experienced injury, you realize that you can work through them. I mean, not in all cases, right? But I think you found a lot of solutions from what I hear from you through, like, I can get injured and I can still move and I can still be okay and I can figure things out. Because I think
move something. Yeah, move
I think
something.
we get like afraid to get hurt.
Well, you get,
I don't know.
you not only get afraid to get hurt, but you don't feel the same. I mean, I can't tell you that I felt this incredible sense of empowerment when I got hurt and started doing all this. I mean, I felt the lowest low and thought, wow, this is a scary place to hang out in for too long. And so move anything, when I was a gymnast and it was my ankle, okay, I'm going to keep my foot off the ground. And that was really hard. And, you're not moving very naturally, but it was a place to start. And, when it was my hamstring and I couldn't run, and that was really, really tough for me. It was a wonderful client of mine who said, everybody talks about what happened to you physically, but no one talks about what happened to you emotionally. And so these are all clues. With the gymnastics, it kind of came from my not wanting to not be a gymnast. That was too scary. I had a lot at stake there. And with the other injury, it's more you get these clues. Somebody will look at you in a certain way, and you don't look the same. Someone will say something to you to acknowledge your difficulty, and you'll either hear that and keep doing the same thing, or something will help you, nudge you and push you a little bit to try something else. And then it's a quick, wow, that felt better.
Yeah.
Or, I'm still feeling pretty crummy. So it's definitely a process. And my greatest piece of advice is no matter what it is, it just keeps changing. I see that with my daughters who are now in their 20s, and I thought, what empty nest might be. I'm still not there yet, but no matter what you think you're losing, there's always something coming back to you, and you just have to stay calm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that seems like a running theme also just in your life through your experience, which I think is extremely valuable, because I think that your ability to just kind of adjust, right, and move with whatever is happening is one of your strengths. I mean, I can almost see, like,
I'm a middle child.
I can almost see like the athlete in you. Like now that I know that
love
about
that.
you, it's like I can
Thank
see
you.
it,
Oh,
you know,
thank
and
you.
I know what that's like. And I know that it's an important piece. And I think that we sometimes can jump from like one extreme of like, I am an athlete or I'm not. And I used to tell myself, I've told this story before, that I wasn't a runner. And then I was like, oh, maybe I can be, you know, and it's like, we all have that in us, like that inner athlete that can move and can adjust and can adapt and can focus and all of those wonderful qualities that I think that, you know, athletes and I just think being a human, that those abilities that we already have there,
Right.
you know?
You know, I think it's important to kind of neutralize a little bit of what we're experiencing. So when you just talked about running, my head went to, and you said I look like an athlete. I thought one of my good friends and hometown heroes, her name is Becca Peasy. She ran 7 marathons in 7 days on 7 continents. She's a World Marathon Challenge winner, the first woman. She's in the Guinness Book of World Records. I was so curious about her when I heard someone in our town was going to do this that I reached out to her and I did a little interview with her. Long, great story, but she kept encouraging me to come run with her when I could at the track. And I was in the back of the pack. And it was eye-opening to be just in a place I hadn't been and had no choice. And again, I could have made a million excuses and felt just really bad about it. But instead, I tried to learn about what does that feel like. There's so many times people start there and stay there. Or I don't know, it was just a new place to be. Even in the Boston Marathon, I was kind of a middle of the pack runner. But it really affected me for a moment to feel like I couldn't move up. And I'm kind of grateful to the ups and downs that allowed me to look at it in a different way, and even to say, wow, I'm here with Becca, who she's ran 7 marathons, 7 days, 7 continents. So I am so grateful to the people that come in and out of my life, because it keeps things so interesting. And you know, we have to keep being that person that when someone is struggling, to say something, if they're not moving forward, to give them that little bit. You calling me saying I look like an athlete today, you have no idea because I'm so far from the athlete I was, and it's all fascinating how it hits us.
Yeah, I understand that. And I understand how the ego can get involved and be like, oh, I'm the last one and I'm not
Right.
where I was or whatever it is, because I've had that experience myself. So working on awakening my inner athlete as well. So
That's a good title. I'll have to write a bit about that one. It's there.
Yeah.
It's there.
What's the best advice you've ever been given?
Wow. Best advice I've ever been given. I mean, don't give up comes to mind, because, oh man, at really tough times, I still hear that in my head, like, don't stop, don't give up. And it takes on a whole different meaning when you're almost done, like there's almost no resource left inside of you. But I'd like to think of a better one too. That one is good, but I'm really stuck on that. I've been given so much influence. I don't know if you know Petra Kolber. Petra is here giving a podcast, and she has a new podcast, I think, saying, I don't want to mess up her. You just have to look for Petra Kolber on Apple iTunes and everything. But she said to me yesterday, you deserve to be here. And that meant the world to me, to begin this week. It feels like a weekend. It's not a weekend, but to begin these couple of days, we should all feel that we're right where we should be at any given moment, because there's so many things we have no control over. But yeah, those are right there for me.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thanks so much.
Thank you.